Saudi Arabian Oil Company, or Aramco as it's widely known, is Saudi Arabia's state-owned oil company. It's the world's largest oil producer, and according to the BP Annual Statistical Review, it has more than 15% of the world's oil reserves. It was nationalised in the 1970s, but it's now looking at listing around 5% of its shares on the public market. Prince Mohammed bin Salman, often referred to as MBS, first announced the intention to IPO some of the shares in Aramco in 2016. However, we've seen repeated delays. One of the biggest hurdles for them is around disclosure. This is a company that since the 1970s has not had to give any information to the public about its financials. So in April 2019, we got our first insights into Aramco's financials. They published a bond prospectus ahead of raising $12 billion in the debt markets for Aramco. We learnt from their bond prospectus that they are indeed the world's most profitable company. They're more profitable than Apple or Exxon, by far outstripping any other company in the world. We also learnt that they have a very complicated relationship with the government of Saudi Arabia. One of the concerns for investors about Aramco and the fact that even if it lists, it will remain most likely 95% government owned, is what the dividend policy will be going forward. In the first earnings that Aramco released, it showed that they paid an ordinary dividend, much like the other oil majors. They also paid a $20 billion special dividend to the Saudi Arabian government. The assumption is that that special dividend was to plug a hole in Saudi Arabia's government budget. And the concern for shareholders is, will that special dividend go to everyone? Or will it just be money that the government gets as and when it needs it? Investors are looking for clarification on what that dividend policy will look like going forward and whether the government as a shareholder will be treated differently to other shareholders. Investors are going to need more detail than what Aramco is currently publishing to feel more comfortable that they fully understand the company's activities and where it's making money and perhaps where it's also not making as much money. That's a baseline expectation from a listed company. The IPO of Aramco is key to MBS's plan to diversify the Saudi Arabian economy so that if oil prices collapse again, as they did in 2014, the economy will be much more resilient and less vulnerable to what is happening in the oil market. The money that the government makes from floating 5% of the company could be as much as $100 billion. And that money could be used to invest in other areas, other industries, to shift the economy's dependence on oil. There are lots of big decisions for Saudi Arabia to make for this IPO to come to fruition. They need to decide where to list the company for starters, and they have mentioned multiple exchanges in Asia, in New York, in London, and there's also a question of timing. Obviously the oil price is key to what valuation Aramco would get on the public markets. One of the major sticking points for the IPO is what the valuation of Aramco is. Prince MBS has said that he sees it being valued at $2 trillion. However, banks see a lower valuation. They talk about it being valued at between $1.2 trillion and $1.5 trillion. If it goes ahead with the IPO, we're going to have a huge amount more information to work with, and it's a big opportunity for investors if they're interested in getting a slice of the energy sector to invest.